everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Praise. Today I wanted to share some more about my weight loss journey and more about the numbers, more about where I was at my highest weight, what was happening, some of the stuff that I was thinking or feeling, and also where I'm at now and how when I lost some of the weight and kept most of it off, not all of it, and some of the ups and downs in between. I'm also going to share some more from the Body Clutter book, because there's some stuff in this in chapter 2 that I think is worth sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Body Clutter book and kind of share something that I think is really important for us to talk about as far as being overweight, being obese. I'm sure not every single person who is overweight is unhealthy, but the habits are unhealthy, and they tend to lead us down a road of medical illnesses that she talks about in this book here. And some of these are the things that I deal with. Now, some of these may have started prior to the weight gain because of some things that I experienced as a child, medical things that weren't necessarily diagnosed at that time and probably should have been, but at that time it wasn't something that they diagnosed. Hold on just a minute to move my light a little bit. Okay, so in this book she talks about, let's see, let me get to that quote here. The problems associated with obesity are numerous. Diabetes, heart problems, cancer, stroke, knee and joint problems are just a few. The cause of obesity is no mystery, and the cure is easily defined too. Why then do we struggle so much with this? I think, speaking from personal experience, I know that there were things going on with me back when I was younger. Like now that in my 30s I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. Now, family history, on my dad's side of family, there's hypothyroidism. So those both contribute to weight gain and having a harder time losing weight. Now, because of that, I know I was, gaining weight as a preteen, teenager. So part of my issues began probably around the age of maybe 12, I guess, was when I really noticed it. And that's when I had the cyst in my ovaries, or on my right ovary. And the pain was ridiculous. And I couldn't walk for a couple weeks. I was walking like kind of sideways, but I didn't want to say anything. And of course, my mom and dad would ask what's wrong, but I was like, oh no, I'm fine. It just hurts a little bit. And I'm thinking that I pulled something, or, something kid does. I don't know. I just assumed that it was something that I did, pulled a muscle, did something, and it would go away. Well, it just kept getting worse. So finally, my mom took me to the ER, and they said I had a tennis ball size cyst on my right ovary. Now, my options were surgery. That was pretty much it. Now, of course, they told my mom more than they told me. I just kind of heard things because I was so young. But part of the things that I heard were, with this surgery, I'd have it gives you like a 50-50 chance of ever having kids. And that was one of the main things that I remember, I guess. I don't really remember much of anything else. Now, I had to go back in 2 weeks to get checked one more time, to have another ultrasound and all of that. And then if it was still there, hadn't decreased in size or whatever, then I'd have to schedule surgery. Well, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. This is something that you would have to research on your own. But at that time, one of my aunts, um, I believe it was her aunt that gave her this information, because my mom was trying to figure out, something that we could do to help me that wasn't medication, maybe some kind of natural thing, an herb, or, whatever. Well, they told, my aunt told me that her aunt, who, I don't know if struggled with this as well or just knew about medicinal herbs, told me to take black cohosh. Now, I've done some research on that now, and I know it does help with certain issues with PMS and I believe menopause and stuff like that. Now, at the time, I don't remember how I took it. I don't remember if it was in a capsule form or just the tea. I don't remember. But I took that along with pain meds for the 2 weeks, I believe that it was. When I went back, it was gone. Now, I don't know for sure that it was black cohosh, but the fact that I'd already been dealing with this for 2 weeks prior and nothing had changed with that then, when I went in, it was just what it was. And then 2 weeks later, this happens. Like, I know that cysts can come and go, but I, researched something like that. I know I've researched some other things, and there's a few different things that they say work: heating pads, castor oil packs, things like that. And I'll get into more of that later as I share some of the research I've done, some of the YouTube videos, and I'll link some of those eventually, or share them in the community tabs of things that I've watched that have something to do with either PCOS, hypothyroidism, or like my gallbladder issues, diabetes, all that stuff, all the natural things that I've researched that have worked with me if I've tried them. If I haven't tried them, I'll let you know I haven't tried them, but this is something interesting, to look into. And then you can let me know if you've tried it, if it worked, or what other things you've tried. All right. Now, part of the thing that I think was so hard, at least for me, is because at that time that I was so young, I started gaining weight. Not a lot right away. It was like a couple pounds here, a little bit, maybe another 2 pounds a few months later. And I just felt like I was so much bigger than everybody else. Funny thing now, looking back at my photos, like I pulled up a photo from about that time where I was about 11 or 12. I'm like, that's goals for me now. Like, I want to look like that now, but at that time, it just felt like I was so fat, like at that time I was where I am now, I guess. And like I saw myself as bigger than I was. And so because of that, and because of my issues with anxiety, I mean, I struggled with that since I was really young. I remember I was in first grade and I had a panic attack. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. All I remember is running outside. It was right after lunch, and I ran outside and I couldn't catch my breath. I was like, my heart was racing and all this stuff, right? And I went home and I told my mom, and I was crying. I said I was never going back to that school again. And I don't think anything actually happened at the school with anyone. I think it was just, I had a panic attack and I didn't understand it, and I didn't know what it was, and she didn't know what it was. She just thought that something happened to me, and I didn't know how to explain it or whatever. Of course, years later, when I believe I was probably mid-30s, is when I started kind of talking more about it with the doctors, and when I actually started seeing doctors more often. And that's when we found out it was anxiety, panic attacks, dealt with depression. And I'll talk more about those diagnoses later, because I know they play a big role in my weight gain. Not just the medical stuff, but the mental health as well. Because for me, I think when I saw myself as way worse than I was, I guess I kind of allowed myself to go down that road. So eventually, I was probably, I'd say it was like late 20s, early 30s, maybe around there, maybe mid 30s when I was at my highest weight. And I will share those numbers when I get into that part of the video. And when I see that now, I think like, how in the world did I get there? Because I wasn't the biggest eater. And I know that a lot of people think, oh, you just ate and ate and ate and ate and ate. Well, I didn't. I ate wrong foods, yes. My snacks were bad, and bad for me because of the type 2 diabetes that I didn't know that I probably had for a lot longer than I realized, because by the time I actually went to the doctor and they started doing tests and things like that, I mean, I was probably 36, 37, 38, around there before I was diagnosed with quite a few of these things around all at the same time. And just from some of the signs and symptoms that I've read about for hypothyroid, as well as diabetes, I think those were things that I was dealing with even, in my younger years, especially the hypothyroidism, because that runs in my family. Now, I don't know if polycystic ovarian syndrome did then. I don't know anyone that had it. I know I did, and I know that at least 2 of my nieces do, and one of them may be dealing with that as well. And so I don't know where that started, and I don't know if anyone else had it, prior to me. But I know that hypothyroidism does run in our family, and that has very similar symptoms to some of the other two, like the type 2 diabetes and the PCOS. And from what I understand, because they're all to do with your metabolic system, they can all kind of exacerbate the other one. So like if you have one and it's not taken care of, it can cause the other one. And they all work against you in the weight loss department. So because I didn't know about all of these things, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I was just kind of going about my life and eating wrong foods for me, and also sometimes just not eating because I was scared to eat because I thought I was going to gain weight. And I did anyway because my body thought I was starving it. And, there's this vicious cycle of things that happen because for whatever reason, at least for me in my case, I always felt like it was selfish to take care of myself, to take the time to learn about all the things that were causing me harm. Because I thought, no, it'll just go away. I'll be fine. I just need to focus on whatever, whether that was at the time, being in college, which is another thing because of the anxiety I had. I dropped out of college 3 times. Now, the first time this was when I first started. I started that summer right out of high school, and I went for a couple of years, I think maybe 2.5 years. But I had to drop a lot of classes because I was having panic attacks. I couldn't get out of the car. So then I just started working, and I thought, forget it, I'll just work. And later on, when probably the year that me and Ben got married, I believe that's when I started school again. We both were going to school and he was working. I had a work study there, and I did really well for a while. But what I noticed was I switched majors each time because once I got to the higher level classes, they were smaller. They required a little bit more presentations, things like that, and I just couldn't deal with it, and I didn't understand that then. I didn't know what was happening. I drive to the college campus, and I'd park, and I'd sit there, and I'd try to get down, and I couldn't move. I didn't know what was happening, and my heart was racing, so I assumed that it was a heart issue. And the reason I assumed that is because back when I was about 20 years old, 21, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. Now, I think the reason for that was because I was also having panic attacks then, and at that time I was in a very stressful relationship that was contributed to a lot of the stress that I was dealing with and causing the anxiety. So I was having panic attacks. I get this at work or whenever, but by the time I'd get to the doctor, all it was showing, of course, was my blood pressure was high and my heart was racing. And because I was overweight, you have high blood pressure. There was nothing else. There was no discussion of mental health, no matter how I was trying to explain it to him. Like, I would explain these things, but they just didn't, that wasn't something that they talked about. This was, here, throw a pill at it, and there you go. And to this day, I take medication for high blood pressure. But the funny thing is, or maybe not so funny thing, is almost every time I go to my regular doctor, my blood pressure is pretty normal. Some other doctors, it does go higher, but it's not as often as my regular. And I don't ever, like, I used to feel it when I'd get high blood pressure. I'd have headaches or lightheaded or whatever, and I don't get like that anymore. So I don't know if it was like the difference in stress levels. I don't know. But the reason why I got into kind of all of that and the idea of me feeling like taking care of myself was selfish is because that contributed to the weight gain. Because I would do things with other people that, oh, you know, they wanted to hang out and order pizza, or you know, go do things that weren't good for me, or the I should have ordered different food, but I wanted to be like other people. You know, I wanted to fit in and not stand out. And believe me, that it took a lot for me to change my lifestyle a while back and the way I was eating and everything, because even then, even in what I was like, I was already in my 40s at that time, I still got a lot of grief, I guess, for eating a whole food plant-based diet. You know, it was this idea that I'm just being picky, but I wasn't being picky, because it worked for me at that time to detox my body. And I learned a lot about my body. I learned a lot about myself, a lot about the foods that I should not have at all, because I have allergies to some of them, which I think contributed to me having a lot of inflammation, because I didn't know that these foods were irritating me, so I would eat them. And one of those things is pizza, tomato sauce. I learned that when I started having extremely bad gallbladder pain, and every time I would eat tomato sauce on pizza, or that's really the only time ever, because I've never eaten pasta, because when I used to eat it in the past, it would give me a headache. So, like, I think there's like a gluten allergy there, as well as, I believe, the research I've done, the hypothyroidism, I think, is the one that gluten and dairy can cause some issues with that. And I'm lactose intolerant for the most part. I have some cheese, because I love cheese, but, you know, I don't do milk. I don't do a lot of dairy stuff. I can't have eggs. You know, there's a lot of things I can't have because they make me sick. But it was like, I was told I was just being picky, or, you know, it was never viewed as, it's okay to make these choices for yourself because it's going to make you feel better. So it took a lot for me to do that, and I'm still struggling with that now, because I did that for a while. Then I had I guess, I don't know what you would call it, like a really depressive episode, about a little, I guess I did that diet for about 6 or 7 months, and towards the end of that, I just had this really, I don't know, deep fall into depression. Now, I do have a diagnosis for that, for the things that are happening with ups and downs and all that, but at the time I wasn't sure. But it just, like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do anything. It was like everything just, nothing mattered. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to continue eating healthy, and I did anyway, but I wasn't doing it in the right way anymore. I started, like, letting go more, I guess, and not listening to my body. Now, in this chapter 2, in the Body Clutter book, the name of the chapter is There's a Cure, So Why Is It So Hard? So one thing on page 13 that she says is, we know that behind these practical steps is the underlying principle that we must love ourselves enough to take care of the only body we will ever be given. So I think that's the main thing. Do we love ourselves enough? And for me and for a lot of people that I know that struggle with some of the same things I struggle with, we struggled with a lot of self-hatred, low self-esteem, that at times it was like, oh, woe is me, why is this happening to me? Like, and for me, I did have that for a while, the whole, why do I have to deal with these illnesses? Why, I didn't choose these. I didn't do anything prior to getting that cyst. Why did I get them? What was the reason for it? And I looked at it more of a, I don't know if it is a burden anyway, but I looked at it more of like something I couldn't do anything about, because it just came and I didn't do anything to bring it upon myself, and it was here and I didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to pretend that it would just go away. And I have the habit of, like, if I just don't think about it, if I just don't deal with it, it'll go away, it'll change. So the weight will go away, the bad eating habits will go away, but they don't. We have to make a conscious choice and change our habits. So, and another thing that I found interesting in this chapter that I highlighted was the Greek origin of the word diet. I'll go up a little further and read this part. So, the word diet has been hijacked to become a word that has negative meaning for most of us. What does this four-letter word really mean? When you go back to the Greek origin of the word diatia, it's diaita. It means a manner of living, or diaetistheia. I don't know how to say that. I'll put these words up either at the end of the video or somewhere in here. And it says to lead one's life. Imagine that. It is the entire way we live and the food and drink we consume to sustain our lives day in and day out. When our doctors put us on a special food regimen, it is usually to improve the quality of our manner of living. We have to quit feeling deprived or punished when we hear the word diet. It is not at all about hurting ourselves. It is just about taking better care of ourselves by finally loving yourself enough, actually, to take the baby steps to control our behavior. And, she goes on to talk about all these different diet things that she's tried since 1974. And pretty much everything was either it didn't work, it was too hard, and that's what happens. We set this idea of, I'm going to try this specific diet, and then we have a mishap and we stop, or it gets too hard, or we buy all these books and we buy all these DVDs and all these things to do workouts, and we either do them for a week and then we stop because I don't know. For me, I think it's partially, maybe it's not the things that are going to work for me. And I don't give myself enough time to say, well, what does work for me? So one other thing she talks about, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to read some of the stuff I've underlined, and this is something she says. Here is the hard part. I really do love me. If I hadn't let go of all that guilt and self-loathing, I would have continued to gain weight. Or could it just be that the person who filled my head with ugliness was no longer in my life, and that lack of stress caused me to quit gaining weight? I don't know, and it really doesn't matter. The most important thing I had to keep in the front of my mind was loving myself enough to want to live a long and healthy life. And that I am not now and will never be the next supermodel or cover girl, but I can love myself just for being me. And I think that's our struggle. We, especially now in the days of social media, I don't know the ages of most of the people who watch my videos, or who watches my videos really, but for me, I remember the times before social media, the times before cell phones and the internet and everything. So whatever types of things that were going on, if you were bullied or made fun of because you were overweight or too skinny or too whatever, it happened usually at school, and you could go home and get away from that. Now if it was happening at home, that's a whole other thing, but it usually happened in forms like that where we had a place to get away from it. Now with social media, unless everyone's on social media, and they do this through there. I mean, the kids bully each other. I mean, adults bully each other on there, and it's like, instead of, if you really don't like what someone looks like, you don't like here on YouTube, I see a lot of people that get on there just to make these rude comments. A lot of people come from a place of hurt, so they come and they want to hurt someone, and I just can't understand that. Like, if I don't like something someone says, because I watch a lot of people on here, and I don't agree with everything. We don't have the same beliefs on everything or whatever, but just because someone says something I don't agree with doesn't mean I have to jump down their throat. All I have to do is either move on. If it's something I really can't deal with, stop watching their channel, unsubscribe, move on to something else. I mean, we don't have to tear each other down. I think it's just, it comes from a place of, we need to think before we speak or before we type, and just look at it of, if someone told me like this, how would I take it? Do it from a place of love. Do it from a place of, if someone told me, how would I want them to tell me? Because we want people to feel good about themselves. We want people to want to change their lifestyles, especially when we're talking about this. Like, I'm talking about weight loss, I'm talking about all these different things. If that's the type of channel that you're watching, and you want to encourage someone because you lost weight or you're in the same situation, you have to come at it from a place of constructive criticism, a place of love, a place of something that you would want to hear, that would motivate you. And just coming at someone and being rude about something they said, or what they look like, or whatever, it doesn't motivate them. At least it wouldn't motivate me. I mean, I can pretty much ignore most of that stuff, but it's just something that we need to think about. And I know that's part of what I want to do with this channel, is just share things in a way, I hope, that are encouraging, and in a way that I hope that if someone needed to address something in my life, they would address me that way. All right, now back to the book. Now, the fact that when we deal with medical illnesses, being obese, all those things, we inevitably can shorten our lifespan. And even if we live till we're 80 or 90 or 100 with the same thing, we're living a harder life than maybe we need to. If we would just make healthy choices, lose some of the weight, lose all the weight, whatever it is that we need to do, eat correctly, and take care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we'd live a better life, a happier life, or a more joyful life, because happiness is dependent on circumstances, and so that's going to ebb and flow. But if we can hold on to joy, that we can be joyful in any storm, especially when we're dealing with illnesses and chronic illnesses at that. And it's hard, but I know that there's so many people who don't get to reach an old age that we consider old or whatever. I mean, because I think even if someone dies when they're 90 or 100, that's still not enough time. But we see people dying so young that, for whatever reason, whether it was their choices or that's just life, it was an illness that took them, whatever. If we can try to do things to keep from shortening our life, or at least even just making our life healthier, so that we could do more, because there's so many things that I think we see that we want to do, whether it be do more traveling, or like I used to love to roller skate when I was younger, and my husband skateboards, and I'm like, if only I could get on a skateboard or roller skates, and even just for fun sometimes. But right now I can't. That's not to say that later on I couldn't, but I'd have to take steps in order to get there. And so that's something we got to understand. We need to do this for us. This is about us individually. Don't do it for someone else because it doesn't stick. It doesn't work. We have to do it because we love ourselves, and we need to learn to love ourselves right where we are. And that's hard because a lot of times we're made to feel like guilty for something or shamed or whatever. And yeah, we may have made bad decisions to get where we are, but there's so many other people that make the same kind of decisions, or at least bad decisions in their own life. They just don't show up as pounds on their body. So we're no better than them. They're no better than us. We're all broken people, and we're all dealing with something, and we all need encouragement, and we all need prayer. We all need, that just that little bit of understanding and empathy. Now, going on in this book, she says, our bodies are like our homes. In fact, the body is the home of our soul, the temple of our being. If we would just be as careful about what we put in our body as we are about what we bring into our home, then we would have an amazing attitude shift. And she says, someone once told me, you are what you eat, and if you eat fat, you will be fat. For some reason, that always stuck with me. Not that I used to pay much attention to it. I've become more particular about what I put in my body temple. It is the only one I have, and it is worth taking care of. I teach others how to declutter their homes by having them look at each thing and asking some tough questions. And here are the questions. Do I love you? Do you make me smile? Do I have a place for you? If the answer is no, out you go. And it's funny because this is something I've been slowly working on, is decluttering. And it's really hard sometimes because I look at him like, well, I really like this thing, or maybe I'll use it. But when you see these questions, do you really love the thing? Is it something that really makes you smile, or is it being here just causing stress because it's taking up valuable space that could hold something else that means more? And even space itself. Do I have space for this? And so later on down the line, she talks about how we can ask questions like this towards the food that we're eating. So these are the questions. Are you going to bless my body? Do you fit into my healthy way of eating? Is your taste worthy enough to go into my body? Why do I want to eat you? And parts, I highlighted a couple other things. So under, are you going to bless my body? You're looking for good nutrition under that one. So these are things that are going to be good for you, build your immune system, make you feel better, gut health. These are vitamins, minerals, fiber, proteins. Okay. Now, do you fit in my healthy way of eating? Well, she says this is one is a simple yes or no. Oh, that scared me. The cat jumped and something fell. Is your taste worthy enough to go into my body? This is the funny thing that she puts in there. I'm telling you this because in the past I have pigged out on the rice cakes. And, there's things that, like for me, there's things that I'll eat sometimes and I'm like, I don't really even like it. Like, I am not big on sweets. Like, cakes and even a lot of candy and stuff like that. Like, I want some every once in a while, and when I do want it, I'll have one and I'm good for a long time. But a lot of times when I do eat it, it gives me a stomachache. So is that taste worthy of it? I mean, does it taste that good? Because some of them don't even taste that good to me. And I don't know if that's partially because of my sugar issues, and because I used to, even when I was really young, I remember if I had too much sugar, which, like in Kool-Aid or or even I didn't really like sodas and things like that. It would just make me feel like sick. And so it makes me wonder, do I really need this? Is like that, chocolate chip really worth it? Does it taste good enough for me to deal with that, the effects of it? Because there's things now that, because of the medication I'm taking and because it does bother my stomach sometimes, that I shouldn't have. And so I have to weigh those things. And like one thing with Mounjaro is I was told to have a bland diet. And it's very hard for me because I really love chili. But if I eat homemade, the chili I make, red chili or green chili, it's fine usually. It's when I go and get like spicy foods from the store, like let's say hot Cheetos, or any of the spicy hot chips, or like I don't know, like a hot and spicy from McDonald's. Like McDonald's in general makes me sick now, but most fast food does. But it's okay. So if I'm in a hurry, does that hot and spicy, is the taste worth it? It's not that good. And I think about it, it's not good enough. And the reason I talk about hot and spicy is because I went to Santa Fe with my dad yesterday, and he wanted to get some nuggets from McDonald's, and I thought, well, I'll just eat from McDonald's. And I didn't really feel like eating a burger, and I'm not that big on chicken anyway, but I thought, well, I'll try the hot and spicy because they have that meal for $3 with one hot and spicy and a small fry. And I didn't feel like soda. I don't really like soda, so I thought that'll be perfect, right? Because I had my water. Well, it did not do well. I mean, I got, not too long after that, I felt sick. And then even late last night, I think it was bothering my stomach. And I also had some flaming hot Cheetos. Like a handful of them. But what I need to remember is a few months ago, I had some. Not very many either. And they made me sick. So, yes, I like spicy foods, but I need to weigh that option. Is that taste worthy? Is the taste of the hot Cheetos and the hot spicy worthy? Or should I just stick with when I can make chili at home? That's when I'll have my chili. Now, the next question is, why do I want to eat you? So this one's like going into the idea of, are you hungry? Or do you need a drink of water? This one, am I angry and want to eat to stuff my feelings? Am I lonely and feeling sorry for myself? Or am I just tired and really need to go to bed? Is this mindless eating? And she talks about, she says, halt and think about it for a second. And halt stands for hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. There's balance in all things. So we need to think about what we're eating as well as what we say, what we do. And let's see what else she says. This is another thing that I think about. I'm going to run out of memory space on this phone. So let me pause here, and then I will take some stuff off this phone, and I'll be right back.